My name's Elizabeth Skorohodov. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Atkinson Elementary in Portland Public Schools. I'm a parent. This is where I might cry a little bit. I'll try not to cry. I'm a parent of 2 dyslexic children who are high school. I just recently got them diagnosed. I've known forever. That's a long story. I can talk to you about that later. And I'm also a teacher. So how did I get to where I am now? My kids led me down this path. I saw that they struggled. I didn't understand. I had a teacher come to me when my son was in 3rd grade and say, hey, have you ever considered dyslexia? And even though I was a new teacher, teaching is my second profession, that was my first year in my own classroom, the year that he was he was in 2nd grade. So it was my second year in my own classroom, so I was very much overwhelmed when this teacher was like, have you ever considered dyslexia? And I was like, I don't know. And I had just received my master's in education, and I honestly at that point was like, I have heard the term, and I know I maybe had 3 hours of education on this. I don't even know. Like, I was just overwhelmed by it. So that's where it started for me. And then through reaching out, asking the doctor, I realized, I should probably get them tested. Quickly realized, well, why spend $1,500 on testing when the school cannot help them? I know that they do not have any way to help them in the gen ed setting in the school district. So why would I knew I'd be out $3,000. I'll just pay for tutoring. I'll do it myself. I'll just do it myself. So that led me to Susan Barton. So I pursued Susan Barton tutoring with my own kids, figured that's money well spent. I could just use it for my own children. And then I switched to, I was in Camas School District doing 2nd grade. I moved to Portland Public into kindergarten and realized, oh my gosh, Susan Barton doesn't transfer to the gen ed classroom very well. I need to see if there's something else I can do, because this is where I need to be helping kids of all ability levels in kindergarten. So then I found Ron Yoshimoto, and he is a fellow for Orton Gillingham, and I went to a week-long training through Ron in San Francisco, and that's pretty much what I use in my classroom is his Orton Gillingham based program that he has developed for gen ed teachers in the gen ed classroom. And then Project Read is a program that PPS just piloted. I can't really say they fully adopted it, but they've piloted it, and I've had some training, and so I kind of use both the kit and Ron's stuff and some other things. So I'll talk about that. So that's kind of how I got to where I am. Started with my own kids, and then when I got into the classroom, I realized, oh my gosh, I need more. And so I pursued Ron. He's amazing. I would look him up. That's what I would say. So my takeaways after all the training I've received in my own teaching is that no 2 students are the same. No class is the same. No 2 students are the same. Students with dyslexia or other learning challenges have great strengths, and it's our job to guide them to their strengths and help them feel their success. Kids with dyslexia are very, very easily frustrated for a good reason, and they build up walls pretty fast. And it's sad to see as a parent, and it's really sad to see as a teacher when you're just not getting to them. Another takeaway is that students are never wrong. The key is your job is to guide them to the answer. So it's not to say, that's not right, because that is what they hear all the time. I'm wrong, I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop trying. I'm going to stop participating. I don't want to be wrong anymore. So we don't want to say they're wrong. We want to help them get to that answer so they feel successful. We want to keep our learning fast and fun for them. There's a very large population of dyslexic kids that are also ADHD. And so they are your wiggle worms a lot of times. They're the ones that can't really sit still, and they have a hard time focusing. So you need to keep it going, and you need to keep it fun so that you can keep those kids engaged. So the concepts and the skills need to be constantly revisited, and they're used as building blocks as you go along. So repetition, 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 always going back, always using prior knowledge in what you're doing now. So that's kind of how I guide all my teaching. Why should you use a multisensory approach to learning? Teaching through the senses, the multiple senses, it helps the students learn the concepts in fun and meaningful ways, but it also implants that information 3 different ways. So when I say you're going to guide them to the answer, that means if they can't get the answer visually, they might be able to get the answer auditorily. If a visual cue doesn't help them and the auditory doesn't help them, they might be able to get to that answer kinesthetically. So one thing that always amazes me every time it happens to me every year, is I'll have a struggling student and they won't be able to grab a letter name or a letter sound, like say the letter B. And I'll show them the card and I'll be like, what's the sound? And they'll be like, and I can give them a picture clue, boy, and they still might not get it. And I'll say, well, let's just try writing it. Let's just trace this letter. And as soon as they start tracing it, B, boy, B, B, B. But sometimes it takes them actually physically starting that letter to grab that sound. And every time that happens to me, I'm like, oh my God, that's why I'm doing this. This is working. This is amazing. So teaching the explicit rules of our language is also vital. Not only will your tag kids love you for it, because they all love information, but those kids that are struggling need those rules. They need to ground it in a why. Why is this doing this? I do not understand it. But if you give them the reason why, there's an E after a V, then it becomes fun. And then they can go home and teach their parent, who probably doesn't know it either, because I didn't learn that way. So it becomes empowering to them as well. So teaching explicit rules and reasons for a language is very empowering to all your students, including the ones that are struggling. The goal is to teach them in a way that they can remember the information and then guide them through the process of finding the answer. So that's why you want to do it in the multiple ways. Another really big thing is we want to try to eliminate and prevent them from learning the strategy of guessing. Guessing becomes their best friend, and it's a frenemy. Not a good friend to have, but they get somewhere in the beginning with guessing. But when they get older, that guessing really prevents them from going any further. So we want to prevent them from learning that as a strategy. And plus, it's fun. So you're going to teach auditorily, so ears only. You want to teach a visual so they can see it and create a picture. A lot of dyslexic students have very good visual memories. A lot of times they'll see things in pictures. And then kinesthetic is your whole body. And then tactile is touch. So that's why you might do sandpaper or shaving cream or Play-Doh, just a different tactile sensation to help them implant it. So some examples. The auditory would be just the letter sounds, the alphabet songs. There's nothing written down. You're just doing it through their ears. Visual would be like a letter card. So this would have a visual on it. H, hat. So when they're remembering this letter and the sound, they can picture the hat. And if they forget the letter name and they forget the sound, they might remember the picture of a hat and then remember, oh yeah, hat starts with. So the visual is a lot of times how they'll learn it originally, and then that becomes a way for them to pull it out of their memory. And then kinesthetic it can be as simple as skywriting. So writing in the air, you're getting the big body motion, muscle memory. I teach my kindergartners, we're going to get this in our muscles too. Our brain's a muscle, our body's full of muscles. We want to get all this into our muscle memory and our brain memory. And then tactile would be the sand, the salt, Play-Doh, things like that. All right, so I'm going to go through some of the strategies I use in my kindergarten classroom. If you teach an older grade level, or if you are a resource room teacher, you might have students that they have holes. If they're missing their short vowel sounds, you might want to go back to the basics with those vowel sounds. They need to know those short vowel sounds. So you're going to need to teach it to them like they don't know it. So one of the things which would be a visual cue would be, this is a Project Read card. It's a poster that it has the letters on the back, so I show them the letters. It has the alphabet up here. So I can talk to them about the difference between a capital and a lowercase letter, and then we can look at the poster and find pictures that have the V sound in it. They love this. This is a very dated, it's a very dated picture. There's lots of different ways you can do this. I have these alphabet tale books, which is a story. It's Vera Viper's Valentine, so it's a story full of the letter V. And it's another way of getting them to hear the sound, and then they have the pictures. They like to find the pictures that have the V in it. Question?
Talk about Project Read at the end.
So I'll talk to you, I'll show you the pieces of Project Read that I have. So this is, that I use. So this is Project Read, and I use this when I introduce the letters.
What is Project?
Oh, Project Read is, okay, yeah, Project Read is it's a kit, and it was meant for tutoring. So it's great. It's based in Orton Gillingham. It has everything you really need to teach a kid K1, 2, but of course, if also for tutoring if they're missing those holes. So it's Orton Gillingham, which means it has elements that are auditory, visual, kinesthetic, tactile, and it will walk. I didn't bring it in my manual, the manuals, but it will walk you through the process of how to introduce letters and rules to the language and things like that. So, but it comes in one big kit, which is really overwhelming, but it's out there. It's about $1,500 for a kit. But I do use a lot of their tools. I'll show it to you as we get to it, but yeah. Yeah. So it's meant for tutoring, but you can use it in a gen ed classroom. It's a little clumsy whole group. It's really meant for small group. Okay, so kinesthetic, that would be the alphabet cards. That, I'll have you practice with these in a minute. So when I'm introducing a letter, I show them this card that has a visual on it. And the kinesthetic would be adding the skywriting. So, and I'll walk you through the process of how I do that with my kinders. But the kinesthetic would be saying, okay, let's gonna write in the air. Poke, H, hat. So they're involving their body in the movements to help them implant that memory kinesthetically. So that would be an example of kinesthetic. Okay, so when I introduce a new letter, I use several different things. I will show them, I teach them lowercase, but I show them uppercase. And the reason I teach them lowercase is because majority of the letters they're going to write and read are going to be lowercase. The lowercase are much more confusing than the uppercase. So I teach them lowercase, but I still talk about the uppercase, and I talk about when to use the uppercase. So if I were to introduce this letter to you, I would say, okay, class, this is the letter V, and my picture cue card is in here in one of these, so I'm not going to show you. I would hold up the card, V, Van, V, but it's in one of your bins, I'm sorry. So I would say, this is letter V, V, Van, V. The capital V looks just like the lowercase v. It's just bigger, it's just taller. The capital starts at the top, slides down to the bottom, and goes right back up to the top line. That's the capital V. The lowercase v, it's going to start at the middle line. It's going to start at the dotted line, but it still just slides down, touches the bottom line, and slides back up to the middle line. Looks just like the uppercase, but it's smaller. This is the letter V, V, Van, V. And then we would talk about the alphabet. So in Project Read, they have a bigger strip that I have on my whiteboard, which is still on my whiteboard. So I just made one up here on this whiteboard. I just wrote one up here. But I love this part of Project Read because it reminds me as a teacher to actually talk about the alphabet with them. So I'll say, okay, raise your hand if you can find the letter V in our alphabet. Is it in the beginning of the alphabet? Is it in the middle of the alphabet or is it at the end of the alphabet? Raise a quiet hand if you can tell me where is the letter V in the alphabet. And they'll say, oh, Mrs. S, it's at the end of the alphabet. Excellent. What else can you tell me about the letter V just by looking at this? And at this point, they know that if there's a star above the letter, it's a vowel. Vowels are very important. And so the first vowel I introduce is A. And so I talked to him about that. I'm like, what do you see that's different about the letter A? Well, there's a star above it. Why do you think there's a star above it? And I let them just talk to each other and think about it, because there's usually somebody in the crowd that knows it's a vowel. They'll come up with that, and then they may not know why a vowel is important. They just know there's vowels. So that lets me start talking about how vowels are important because every word has to have a vowel. If it doesn't have a vowel, it's not a word. So then at this point with the letter V, I'll have them, they'll be able to tell me, well, it's a consonant because there's no star above it. And I'll say, oh, right, exactly. So what does the star mean? So we can keep reminding and talking about vowels, the importance of vowels, and that there's consonants and there's vowels. So it just gets that conversation going at a very early age, because they're going to need to know that later. So we just start right away with that. So after we talk about that, then we do our skywriting. So I don't have my letter card, but I would say, all right, we're going to write the letter in the sky. I would be holding up my letter V. So I'd say, poke the sky. You want a nice straight arm, as straight as you can get it. A really great way I've been doing this year is to have them do rockets. So then you're connecting both sides of the brain, that crossover. I can't do it because I'm holding a card up, but I tell them that. I can't do it because I have to hold the card up, but you can. If you want, you can do rocket ships. Nice straight arms, poke the sky, and then we're going to write our letter V. And I hold it up, and I have to do it backwards because they're going to copy me. So that's the trickiest part, is that you as a teacher have to do it backwards. So poke, V, van, V. Where do our letters start? At the top, always at the top, top, top. So we're trying to get, I don't know why, but they always go the bottom up. So you have to just drill, drill, drill. It starts at the top. Always, numbers and letters always start at the top. V, van, V. And so we'll do that a few times. And then that is when, after we practice that a few times, I will have them go back and I will have them practice on their papers. And at this point, it's just crayon or pencil, whatever they want. Color doesn't matter. But as they write, I'll tell them, I want to hear you say it as you write it. V, van, V. So before I set them off to work, we'll talk about names. Like what goes up here? Name, right. Does anybody have a V in their name? Oh, Vicky. Vicky, you have a V in your name. What's the first letter in your name? V, right. Now it's the first letter in your name. Is that going to be capital or is that going to be lowercase? So we can start talking about the differences between capital and lowercase letters just from the very beginning. Oh, capital, you're right. So I'm going to start at the top. V, van, V. Great. And then we'll spell their whole name, which they love because who doesn't like to hear their names? And then after that, I'll say, all right, now when you're doing this, I want you to be really careful. So lowercase letter, start at the middle line, touch the bottom line, back up to the middle line. V, van, V. Say it with me. What I want to hear you say when you write this, V, van, V. Oh, I can't hear you. What are you going to say? V, van, V. Oh, very nice. Let's do it again. V, van, V. And then I'll let them off to practice, and I want them saying it as they write it. V, van, V. So they're not only getting the kinesthetic of writing it, they're hearing themselves, and they're still tying it to the picture. So that's helping them implant it. So anyway, go ahead and get out your V, and it is interesting as you practice it, really think about your brain and what it feels like. When you're practicing it V, van, V, and you're really thinking of it this way, it feels different. It feels different in my brain when I do it that way. So go ahead and practice, and I want you to practice saying it as you write it. V, van, V. You want to make sure that if they add that U sound, that you cut it off, right? And that's a Project Read thing, but it's really important. It's not V. That's a different sound. It's and you talk about how it vibrates your lip and how your lip goes kind of between your teeth. Like you do want to talk about how their mouth feels and where their lip positioning is. I mean, kindergarten I do it naturally because there's so many, you know, not all the sounds are really there yet. But if they're not putting their lip in the right spot, they could easily be saying a different letter sound. And that you're going to see that happening in their writing and their spelling and everything else. It'll transfer. So you definitely, you want to keep them from saying the, it's v, cut off that U. There's no U there. Mm-hmm.
How do you ensure they're doing the skywriting correctly and not practicing incorrectly?
So I do it whole group. And so when I'm doing it, I'm watching them do it with me. So I can visually see that they're doing it correctly because they're right in front of me.
I've seen it before where they have a sight word,
Mm-hmm.
practice it, turn it, skywrite it, and then do you ever give them independent time to skywrite?
The only time I have them I don't have them independently skywrite. I will, in a small group, do Play-Doh or felt or something where I'm in front of them practicing it. Otherwise, their practice, when I send them off to work, I will give them things to trace or to build where they have the beginning point. Of course, they are going to do some practicing without it being completely explicit, but that's when that small group becomes really important so I can keep it going. And as I'm watching, I know the ones that are struggling with directionality, and I can make sure to pull them for every day. I'll pull them and make sure they're trying to get it going the right direction. But yeah, I don't have them practice skywriting by themselves.
What are some of the ways you get them to do the directionality the correct way?
So I have one of the activities that they can do is practicing their letters, and I will actually have this same sheet, and I'll put it in red, the starting point, and I'll do arrows. So if they're doing it by themselves, they'll follow my cues on the paper. So it's written right there for them. They're just tracing over it. If I have a parent, I'll have a parent observing that group. So that would be like my writing choice. They would be doing that as a writing choice in the very beginning. I don't really have anything else for writing. And if I have a parent, I'll have a parent do Play-Doh or something more fun with them. But if it's independent work, then they're choosing a sheet that has it telling them exactly where to start and where to go with it. Because I can't. I don't know that they're going to do it right every time. But if I put enough directions on there, which is visual, then they usually do it right.
This might be a silly question, but left-handed students, should they be skywriting with the hand in which they write? Or
Yes.
is it irrelevant? So they should be, okay.
Yeah, they'll skywrite with the hand they're going to write with, which is usually what they'll put up there in the air. I don't really tell them right or left. It's whatever arm they put up there. Usually they'll put their dominant arm up there. But if they do the rocket ships, it hits both. So if you're right-handed and left-handed, it doesn't matter.
And I've done a couple of things that have made a difference this year. Instead of saying intervention, I've called it support. Because it's taken away that negative for my older kids. And then the older kids, I was just really honest. This is elementary, intermediate, and said, I'm here to help and support you. And this is a room of no shame. And we all have our strengths and so that's how we started it out before we went to the sounds. So that they all felt in a safe place where they could mess up and it would be okay.
Well, and if you can, if you have time in the beginning of the year to talk to your older students and just tell them the history of written language, do it. Speech came first. This is what we're really good at. This is what's wired in where our brains are wired for speech. Where our brains are not wired for reading. That's only been around for a few thousand years. So it's hard. Give them that win. You're not stupid. You're not dumb. This is just the way our bodies have developed. Written language came from here. It started with words, and then it went to pictures. From pictures, it went to, and just talk them through that. And, knowledge is power. And the more we can show them that they're not dumb, we just need to learn things a different way. That's all. It's not a big deal. I'm sorry that we didn't teach you the right way the first time. If we would have taught you the right way the first time, you wouldn't be sitting here. So take it off their shoulders. This is not your fault. It's not your fault that you're struggling right now. We did not present the information to you the right way the first time. So now I have to fix it. I need to help you because your brain is beautiful and it just learns differently. No big deal. But now I've got to do it a little differently. Just go with me on this, right? And throw them that, take it off their shoulders. It's not their fault. I've been telling that to my high schoolers, my own kids for a while. It's like, this is not your fault. I feel terrible that you're in this situation. I feel terrible that I let you get to this point. You are not the problem. The problem is the school system did not teach you the way that your brain needs to be taught. Your brain has plenty of strengths, but so all of that, they need to hear that. That's all positive stuff for them. We're gonna run out of time. Okay, so the key with I was gonna give you letters to practice with, but the key when you're doing letters is that you have to do it backwards. And if you can use any cards you want for this. Mine have pictures because I'm kindergarten, but I don't do pictures all year. About January, picture cards go away and it's just the letter. I still can use that picture to help them if they're stuck because it's implanted. But I no longer make them say V van V. I switch to, okay, we're just going to say the name and the sound, V, V. And if they get stuck, I'll say, ooh, let's think. What was that picture? Van. What's the first sound of van? So you're guiding them to the answer so that they're always right. Anyway, so we're not going to practice that because we're going to run out of time. Finger spelling. So that segmenting of the words is very challenging. So the finger spelling is auditory. You're going to say a word and then they're going to repeat the word, and then you're asking them to either tap out the sounds or finger spell it. So if you're finger spelling it, you're going to do this backwards to them too. So if I said, I'm going to say the sound word first, cat, your turn, cat. All right, Project Read has this little hook that I love. I'll say, all right, I'm going to throw the word to you. I have a cat. It sleeps on my head every night. I have a cat. The word is cat. Ready? Get ready to catch it. You're going to catch it, and you're going to finger spell it. The word is cat. Ready? Cat. And then they catch it. Cat. Finger spell it. K-at. K-at. How many letters in the word cat? 3. Excellent. What's the first one? K-C. And then, so you can go through that process of having them catch it, hear the sounds, figure out how many letters are in it, and what are those letters. It's just working through that process, and you can do blends and everything else. When you get into digraphs, it's 1 finger per digraph. So cash would be k-ash. Trigraphs, same thing. Because you only have 5 fingers, so you have to, I teach ing, ang, ong, and ung as a chunk. So if I say we're going to spell the word sing, we're going to finger spell sing. I love to sing. I throw it to them, sing, sing, because I don't have enough letters. But I'll teach as a chunk, and I'll make posters on it and all that stuff. So finger spelling is always backwards to you as well, because they're going to copy. We only have 20 minutes, so I want to show you. I'm not going to have you practice it. If you want to practice it, it's in the packet, and you can go home and do it with a friend. All right, handwriting. Handwriting is kinesthetic. So this is my handwriting practice, and then I'll do it in Play-Doh and sand and other things. And if you have the ability to have parents, it's a great thing to have a parent volunteer do, because you can teach them the routines pretty easily, and then every time they come, you just give them the letters that you've already taught them, and you can have them do letter formation. They have to just watch the formation. And then you can build that into CBC words and using those words, those letters to make words. The key is you cannot give them a word that the letters have to be in the word. You can't give them a word if you have not taught them those letters, because that's not fair, right? So you're limited in your words and your dictation, your sentences, your phrases. You're limited to what you have taught them. Not fair, can't give them a sound that you haven't actually explicitly taught them. So I'm not gonna go any further into that. We already did that. Oh, no, one thing. So V has a rule to it. So when I teach them letter V, I also teach them the rule. So the first time I show the V Van V card, I'll tell them this is our new letter, V Van V, and get ready. There's a rule. No English word ends in V, always followed by an E. And they'll be like, what? I'm like, I'll prove it to you. No English word ends in V, always followed by an E. Let's see. Let's think of the word have. Have. There's your E, because no English word ends in V. It's always followed by an E. Can we think of another one? How about, and they'll always come up with love, even though it's unfair. Give, right? So here's give. G. Sound it out with me. So we'll sound it together. G. What's that first letter? O, G, G. E, V. There's our V, but there's a rule. What's the rule? No English word ends in V, always followed by an E. There's your give. That's spelled correctly. So, well, and then every time we come to that letter, we always say the rule. So the rule is repeated every single time I show them that letter card. We do letter name, picture, sound, rule, so that they're getting that rule at the same time. And then as they're practicing it, if you want the challenge, say the rule while you practice it. V, Van, V. No English word ends in V, always followed by an E. So I teach the rules along with every letter when there's a rule.
Where do you find the rules?
So Project Read will have the rules in their lesson plans. My guess is you could Google and get a pretty decent list of rules.
Logic of English.
There you go.
The book is Uncovering the Logic of English. But it's all online. Denise, oh, I forget her last name, but she has all the tutoring and everything. You can learn how to use it. It's all free. It's online.
Yeah, the rules are important to teach, because those rules are where that's going to ground that information and give them that why that's so important. And that's really interesting to all your kids, because then what I do is I tell them, I bet your parent doesn't know this rule. Why don't you go home and teach them it, see what they say. And then I'll let the parent know, yeah, they should be able to teach you the rule that goes with this. And then your parents like you too at that point, right? All right, so auditory practice. Auditory practice, phonemic awareness is critical. I have this amazing book by Haggerty, and this takes a lot of the work out of it for you because it's all auditory. And it's just amazing. So I used to do this, sit there and agonize over spelling lists so I could do these things throughout my morning, and I break it up into little chunks. But now I have the book, and so I can just follow what they have to say. So I highly recommend, it's called, it's Michael Haggerty. Kindergarten is blue, this is first grade. It's like $75 to $100 per book, so it's very affordable, and it's all auditory practice. So a lot of the things up here, you don't have to have the book. These are some of the games that they actually have in the book. So rhyming is a really important building block, and it's something that a lot of our dyslexic kids struggle with, is rhyming. So just having them hear rhyming and understand that's a rhyme. So every day, right now, because I'm at the beginning of the school year, I'll just be saying rhyming words and they'll be repeating it. So like rain, train, sing, ting, sing, ting, and we just are getting the pattern into it, and we sing it and all those things. But eventually, it'll be something like, I'm going to say 2 words, thumbs up if they rhyme, thumbs down if they don't rhyme. All right, so sing, ting. Ah, rhymes, excellent. Pot, pan, doesn't rhyme. So just getting them to hear the difference between rhyming and not rhyming is really important. And then they have one that's the 3-word rhyming game where you would say the 3 words and they have to tell you the 2 that rhyme. So it gets harder. So the great thing about Haggerty is that if you start at the beginning of the book, it gets harder as you go through the book, and you don't have to sit there and think about all the words because it's already written for you. So it's a really good resource that I would recommend to anybody, and it's all auditory.
I used that all the way up to my 5th graders in tutoring, so it was, and they enjoyed it.
Yeah, and our reading specialist uses this in her small groups because the auditory is typically one of the weak, that's a huge weakness. So this practice is critical.
Is it just a script for you to read?
It's script, and you can kind of like, I don't, depending on my group, my wiggle worms, sometimes I can't get through all the examples or all the words under each section, but I'll cut it short because the important part is that I'm hitting each piece. So it'll be hearing first sound, hearing ending sounds, hearing middle sounds, rhyming words. It gets into, I go further into this. So first sound and final sounds, because that's really hard for them to hear the ending of the word. So you want to train them to hear it. You're training their ears. And then compound words, which is building that syllabication later. So for compound words, in the beginning, I might say, all right, I'm going to say a word, you repeat it, and then we're going to break it up. So I might say backpack, backpack, backpack. And so you just do a bunch of breaking the compound words into its sections. And then you'll reverse it, because it's all about being flexible with language and being able to do it, take it apart, put it back together, and substitute. All those different ways of playing with language is what you're wanting to get them really good at and comfortable with, because it's very tricky. So then I might say, all right, backpack, backpack. So you do it both ways, but Haggerty takes all the thinking out of it for you because it has all the words for you. Otherwise, you have to come up with it yourself, which is fine. You can do that.
What's the kindergarten book?
The kindergarten book is blue.
But what does it have?
Same. It's the same thing. It's just simpler words. It starts at a more basic, a simpler spot. And then this book will kind of pick up where the kindergarten book leaves off. So you can use this with any age kid if there's holes. You could use this with anybody. It's phonemic awareness, 100%. Yeah.
I use that program, and also you can use it strategically even with whole group. Like, for example, if you're teaching the R sound, AR, for example, or like R-controlled vowels, you can go in the index, find the R-controlled vowels, and that can be your auditory piece at the beginning of your whole group. So you could use it small group, intervention, or whole group.
Yep.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's great. And because remember, you don't want to just do phonemic awareness. In a day, you want to touch on all 3. You want to do kinesthetic, auditory, visual. You want to do all of them every single day. So this is just one element that you want to make sure that you're hitting in the day. So you want to make sure. So it's nice because it means that I can, when I'm rushed for time, this is one piece I don't have to sit here and plan. I know that I'm on week 20, Wednesday, week 20. This takes one element off my plate because I'm going to have to plan this other stuff because this is only one part. I need to do all the senses. But this is great. I'll leave it here for people to look at the end if you want.
It looks like they're $80 a piece.
Yeah, super affordable.
So if you're going to get one, you start with the first grade one.
Well, I'm kindergarten, so I have blue. If you were are you a reading specialist?
Yeah, K-8.
Okay, 8. I don't know. I would probably start. Yeah, I mean, by the end of the blue, you're doing the kindergarten book. by the end, you are segmenting words into their pieces, and it's pretty good. There's a lot in there. Yeah, I would probably start blue. And they're so affordable, you could eventually have all of them. I would start blue. Because you really want to make sure that you're starting early enough, you want to catch the holes. You don't want to start down here and then realize, oops, they don't know rhyming, and have to backtrack.
They have a purple one that's pre-kindergarten, and then they have kindergarten and then they have this one that says primary.
Yeah, they're really affordable. They're worth every penny, every penny. So the auditory, that's what I use anymore for auditory. Okay, so this is one of my favorite games to play. I forgot my pocket chart in my classroom, but I call it the Martian game word. But so once you teach, again, the rule is you can only use letters they know. Otherwise, it's unfair. So, and this is the blending. And so you can get into blends, you can get into digraphs, all that kind of stuff. So I would have this in a pocket chart. I also do it in small groups, but you can do it whole. I do it whole group, and then I do it in small groups when I pull my ones that need it. And so you would have it up here, and you say, okay, so let's read the first word, and once they get good at it, you can go really fast. So the key is that they're going to race you eventually. So they'd read at, rat, excellent, and then you can just change one sound. All right, now what do I have? Sat, ooh, great, now what? Zat, oh, and they'll be like, wait, that's not a word. You're right, it's a Martian word, because Martians have a different language. They don't speak English. Some of these words are not going to be English words. These are Martian words. That's okay, that's fun, right? And so then they're like, that's a Martian word. But what you're doing is you're building syllabication, because those nonsense chunks are going to be part of much larger words. So they need to be able and comfortable reading pieces that are not real words. So this is a fun way of teaching them how to read those syllable chunks fluently and get used to it not making sense. It's a nonsense word. That's all right. It's a nonsense word. Later on in life, that's going to become very useful. And then you can change the vowel. Oh, it's zat. Now what is it? Oh, zit. Oh, my goodness. Now what is it? And you can just do all the vowels and the ending sounds. So you can play with all beginning, middle, end. You can eventually I'll have blends in here, digraphs. But the key is you can only use words and chunks that you've already taught them. So that's one of the fun games I like to play with them. And I'll do that whole group as if you're at the carpet and you're ready to go, you can read my Martian words. Who wants to read Martian words? And then zip, they're there pretty fast. So that's a fun game I like to play. You probably all do this already. So the other thing is you can build words on whiteboards, and you can have them build with you. Or another attention getter I'll do is I'll say, all right, if you're sitting on the carpet and you're ready to go, you can read my word, and I'll just start writing, and then I'll tap underneath and I'll say the sound. So what's the sound? Blend it. Blend it. What's the word? Nice. All right, now listen, and then you can just play with it. All right, let's just change the last sound. Now what's my word? What's the word? Sim. Awesome. And so you just kind of play with it, the blending and the taking apart and all that stuff. So I'll do that on whiteboards as just a way to get them to the carpet. And then sometimes I'll give them their own whiteboard and I'll do a dictation with them. So I try to do dictation. I would love to do it every day, whole group, but I don't have enough time for that. So I will do dictation every day, small group at the minimum. So I may only get to half my class every day, but every day I'll do small groups. So right now, this time of year in kindergarten, I'm just doing words. I'll start with, that's right, you have a packet. Sometimes I do it on paper, and sometimes I do it on the whiteboards. So if you go to the last page of your packet, This is the if I use paper right now, this is the paper I will use. And so what I will do, and this is a Ron Yoshimoto trick, is you make a sound bank for them. So this is where you can have them practice that letter sound recognition. So I'll say, okay, on this first line, I want you to put the letter that says B, B, and then you'll write it down. So why don't you go ahead and write down the word that says, the letter that says B. And I'm doing it small groups so I can see what they have, and then I might call on somebody. So what letter did you just write down?
B.
Yeah, good job, B. B, boy, B. All right, let's write another letter down. Let's write the letter that says K. Now, right now, I've only taught the letter C, so they already write down a C. But later on in the year, if I said, maybe it's the end of the year, I said, let's write down the letters that say K. Then I want them to write all the different ways you could write K, which could be a C, a K, or a CK. So then they would have all of those written down because they all say K. All right, now write the letter that says A. A. So you're doing dictation and they're recalling. And if they're stuck, if I see one of them that's stuck, then I might say A. Apple. And then usually they'll get it with apple. And if they don't do apple, I'll say, let me try skywriting apple. Can you skywrite with me? Ah. And they're like, oh, apple, A, apple, ah. And then they'll get it. But a lot of times with the visual cue, they'll get the visual. That'll be enough they'll need. So you'll write down an A. Let's do one more. How about the letter that says T? T. What letter did you just write down? T, awesome. And how about the letter that says S? Now right now I've only done S, so you'd write down an S. And then the last letter, how about the letter that says O? O. And if they're kind of clueless, I'm going to have to say, look at my mouth, O. My tongue, look at my tongue, O. So I can use the visual of your mouth positioning too. And then once we have our letter bank, then I can give them a word, and it can only have these letters in it. So if they get stuck, I can say, well, let's look at your letter bank. Is it a B, a C, K, CK, A, T, S, or L? What do you think? So let's try one. I would like you to write the word bat. I love it when I see a bat fly through my yard. Bat. I'm going to throw it to you. Ready? Get ready to catch my word bat. Here's my word bat. Ready? Catch it. Bat. Let's finger spell it. B-A-T. All right. Can you write it down? And as I write it, you want them to say the sound and the letter as I write it. So B, B, B. What letter is that? B, 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 A, 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 B, at. Now, ideally, they're going to finger spell it on the hand that they're not writing with. I have not been successful teaching that in kindergarten. But older kids, you could teach them to finger spell it on the hand that they're not going to write with, and then they'll remember. It only has three sounds in it. I have to do B, then A, then T, and they can keep track of what they're doing, or they can do it on the tactile on the table or whatever. I haven't been successful getting kindergartners to do that. That's a little bit too many directions for a kindergartner. But older kids, you could. And then if you're a small group, you can see what they did, and you can have them check it. All right, let's check it. Because sometimes they'll have it, but they'll write it down wrong. So then you want them to read it and double check their work, because you're teaching them how to check their own writing. So let's check it. Let's make sure we got it. So the first sound is B, A, bat. Bat, bat. Is that what I wanted? Yeah, good job. Give yourself a smiley face. Nice job. And then you can do another one. So teaching them how to proofread and check their work is really important. And I start doing that in kindergarten. The next page, if you flip that over, that page I would use for long sentences or phrases. And the longer word up here, it says red flag word. That would be for like my high frequency word that I taught that week. So I would, and up here would be maybe endings like ing or letters. But so you still have your word bank. It's just for more complex sounds, chunks, high frequency words. And then again, the same rule applies that, if they have their whole alphabet and you're doing high frequency words and endings, then maybe I would have S, ES, ING, and my high frequency word is there, as in it is over there. And then my dictation, my sentence would have there in it, and maybe ing or plural S or whatever. But this bank is to help them. These are the challenge pieces that you're going to give them. And so they'll be able to rely on that. Like if they're stuck, they can go up here and, well, it's not S.
And this template came from?
This is Ron Yoshimoto. Yeah, but you could do it on anything. But I like it because it calls out a space for these tricky things that they can then go back and refer to when you're doing the dictation. One of the things I do with dictation, which I really like, which is I'm totally off my slides. I should probably. A really fun thing I like to do with dictation is getting it in their body before they start writing it down. So dictation comes at the very end. I'll wait for that. You have to stick around to figure out my trick on that one. So words to read. This is my words to read. This is a really fun thing I can do to get kids to the carpet as well, but it's also something you can do in a small group. So words to read is just another way of practicing their reading. If you do it whole group, then you kind of know your kids that struggle. So the key with words to read is that you start easier and you get harder. So the last row is going to be harder than the first row. And then you can bring math, you can bring a lot of things into this practice with them, and vocabulary, things like that. So we would first say, all right, we're going to do some words to read, so let's look at the row that starts with a circle. And you might have somebody come up and, who can point to the row that has the circle? How do you know that's a circle and not a triangle? So now you're already talking about math, right? All right, so here's your circle row. Now let's read these words, and you'll read it as a whole group. So let's just go sound by sound. So what's this first sound? G. Blend it. Ga. Gum. Gum, yeah, I love to chew gum. I wish I had a piece of gum right now. Let's do the next one. Ready? What's the first sound? Blend it. Fun. I love to have fun. Do you like to have fun? What do you do for fun? And you can get them talking about the vocabulary of the word fun. So you could read the whole first row together and then have, if you have a whole crowd up here, you can say, all right, the first row right here, let's go ahead and read them together. Just the first group. Ready? Gum, fun, cub. Excellent. All right, second row. And so just to get it fluent, you could do that for the whole poster. So you're reading all these words together. And maybe, depending on their attention span, maybe you're only going to get through the first row. But you can do it tomorrow, right? But then, once you have this done, then you can start asking them about the words. So eventually, after I know that they know the words, I might say, all right, if you're on the carpet, you can do some words to read with me. Shoop. In the triangle row, can you find the word that is a little house that might be made of like mud, maybe? Can you find, and of course I will have used vocabulary around it earlier, and then they'll raise their hand, and then all of a sudden they have to read all these words to find the word hut. So you're getting them to read it, and you're getting them a challenge. And then I would have them come up. Can you put a triangle above the word that is a little house made of mud? And then they would come up and they would put a little triangle above it. And now you're doing math again. How about, in the square row, can you find a word that has a digraph in it? So now you're talking about digraphs. Can you find a word that has a short, oh, they all have short U's. How about, can you find a word that has the rule, I was trying, oh, I can't think of my rule right now. Anyway. Can you find a word that means to be very fortunate? So you can talk vocabulary with them. And then you can have them come up and circle, underline, directionality, all those kinds of things. And it's just a fun way to do it. And I'd make a poster, and then I can revisit this poster all week long as a quick little way to get them reading, thinking of vocabulary, up off the carpet, engaged, to the carpet fast. So words to read I try to do every week as well. So that's that, and that's a visual practice. All right, so tactile. This I do in small group. When I'm doing skywriting, I have them write things on the carpet. That's tactile too. But I mostly do this in smaller groups. So I can do sand, salt, glue letters, all that kind of stuff. Now this is Project Read. Project Read has these really, which you could make, so felt, but it has the top and the middle and the bottom lines. So when they're writing their letters, they can feel the top and the bottom and the middle. So these are great. So in small group, I would have one kid with the felt and one kid with the glue dots.
So how do you make the glue letters?
So it's just, I'll pass these around, but it's just a black and white copy and then Elmer's glue.
And just little dots?
Just little dots, yeah. And then you can do sandpaper. Some people will do sand, like glue with sand on it. And then one kid will just have the book, which has the directionality. And then we do the same letter at the same time. So I have enough where I can send them both sides. But you would just do a small group. Like, all right, what's the letter? It says V. Oh, V. V, van, V. No English word ends in V, always followed by an E. And then what you would do is one kid, the kid that has the felt, you do one letter, right? And then you switch it. So now that kid that just had the felt, now that kid has the glue dot. And then you do another letter and then you switch it. So you're always moving it. So they're getting a different tactile feel. And I have a little container of sand. They can do sand. It's just getting that different feeling with their practice, which just makes it a little bit more engaging for them. And if you're moving the different tactile surfaces, then it keeps them engaged because they really want that sand. I'll do this one where I'm just tracing a letter, but next time I get the felt, and I like the felt. So it's just another little hook. Plus, having the different tactile surfaces does help implant it in their memory a little better.
The newest thing is this sequence.
Oh yeah, I don't have any of those.
At the corner. What are they? Flippable sequin things. Like the kids have the shirts, but there's pillows that you can get. And you haven't seen it?
It's just like a sheet of sequins, yeah. They got backpacks made of it. I do have a pillow, but I only have one pillow, so I haven't thought of bringing that into that. I should try that. That's a really good idea.
You can get fabric like that too.
Oh, cool.
And they love the sequins right now, so that's a really good hook. Anything that feels different is going to be a good hook. Yeah. So that's just a good way to practice the letter names and sounds, their directionality, especially for the kids that have that hole. Then that's more interesting than doing skywriting. So, but that would be tactile practice. This is also a really good one for parent volunteers.
The people who are stuck at home but want to volunteer could do your dot letters for you.
Yes, they sure could. Yes, they could.
And make food.
And they can make those for you, which are great. I mean, it's not hard. None of this is hard. It's just, it's like, oh, well, that's I don't know. It's not hard. It's just bringing it all into practice in a gen ed classroom is tricky. So I just try to do everything with like 10-minute chunks. I'll do a 10 little mini lesson, and then I'll get them off the carpet, and I'll have them working, and I'll do a small group. If I have a parent volunteer, they'll do a small group, and I'll have them working with these things puzzles, stuff like that. And I'll bring them back and I'll do another little chunk. And these will tend to be my attention getters. This will be attention getter. Get to the carpet fast, we'll do some words to read. Get to the carpet fast, we'll do some Martian words. Get to the carpet fast and we'll do some whiteboards. You know, just that hook to get them there because time is everything. And then I'll do maybe I'll do some Haggerty. And we'll do 5 minutes of Haggerty. And then I'll do a little bit of dictation on the whiteboard. And then, all right, let's go back and work. Now I'm working with this small group, and this small group's going to do puzzles, and this small group's going to do, and you know, just to keep them going and up and down and moving their bodies. So I take all this and I kind of do it in small pieces throughout it takes me about an hour, including the handwriting. I do the handwriting every day. But this is one of the elements that I do. But this is great for parents. You just have to train them. You got to make sure to train your parents. So when I'm in my small group, if they're my really struggling kiddos, 4 is really hard. 3 is better. 2 is great. But 4 is doable, but they tend to be the ones that have a really hard time focusing. So if you can make them smaller than 4, that's better. My tier 2 kiddos, those are the ones that are struggling, but they're not completely lost. I can do 4 or 5, maybe 6 if there's, depending on the kids. And then tier 1 I do all this whole group, and my tier 1s may not get a lot of this small group unless they just want to do it for fun. But I'll give my tier 1s, which are my kids that I'm not worried about, I'll give those to the parents. And they may do the same SALT and Play-Doh, but I'll have them doing sight words. I'll have them doing CVC words. They don't have to do the letter sounds with me. They can go on beyond that. And they can do that with a parent because I'm not really worried about them. But I always work with the tier 3s and the tier 2s. Tier 2s could do me and a parent, but I'll do the tier 2s at least twice a week. Tier 3s I try to do every single day. Okay, so this is anybody familiar with Project Read and their spell tabs with the stickies? Do you use the sticky notes?
I don't really know how to use them.
Okay. Love-hate relationship with the sticky notes. So Project Read, so this is the Project Read board, and it's for dictation. And the reason why this is so great is because for those kids that have fine motor problems, holding that crayon or that pencil or that pen, that's another battle for them, right? They have to get through the ability to that fine motor in order to show you if they can do any work with their letters and their sounds, right? So this takes away that fine motor element. So Project Read has every letter on a sticky note. So it's the same idea, it's the same concept as this page, except for now you're taking out the writing. So in Project Read, you would put a sticky note, the letters you've introduced, you'd have a sticky note up here. And then you would do your dictation, and they would take the sticky note and they'd spell over here. And they just have to transfer it over, they just have to stick it. So it takes out the fine motor altogether. But kindergartners and sticky notes, well, I did it for a while, but I had sticky notes everywhere. So I've been trying to figure out a better way. So somebody was cleaning out their house and they got rid of all their magnets. And so I told them, I will take those magnets. And I went to Michael's and I bought this nice little bin. And now I have all the letters. And I think these are Scott Forsman letters. And they have the vowels in red, which is great because I would need them to know that vowels are different and they're special and every word has to have a vowel. So having the vowels in red is wonderful. And now I use this. I just fold it over because they don't need that part. And they get this part in front of them. And I'll do the same thing as dictation. I'll give them a word. I'll throw them the word. All right, bat. Or sometimes I'll use a magnet board. These magnets are very powerful, so it doesn't really matter. Bat, b-at, and then they just have to find the letter and put it on the paper so I can say they did it, or on the metal. And then we just have to put it back. So it really made it a lot easier not having the sticky notes, because now I don't have sticky notes stuck all over myself and the floor and their faces and everything else. They just have to manage the magnets. So this was my way of dealing with sticky notes. But I love it because I always have at least one kiddo that the fine motor is getting in their way. And they can't show me what they know because they can't get it out on paper with a crayon or a pen or a pencil. So take it away, give them a tool they can use to show you their knowledge without having to handwrite it. So the magnets worked really well, but I mean, I'm sure there's other ways you can do it. This is how I solved my problem. And you can look at that later if you want to. Anyway, so that's the spell tabs. And it's auditory because I'm going to have them hear it, throw it, finger spell it. It's visual because they do have the letters in front of them. And it's kinesthetic because they're transferring it over to the board. So they're actually physically moving something. And it's still visual. Okay. High frequency words. Oh, I love this. Okay, high frequency words are great. I love high frequency words. So you have 2 pages. I'll do a high frequency. Right now I do one high frequency word a week, but that's kindergarten. When I get to words like we, be, me, she, he, then I can do more than one at a time if I teach them open syllable, closed syllable. Like, I can teach it because it's a pattern. I like to teach them what an open syllable is at that time because that's why the E is saying its name, is because it's an open syllable. But you don't have to because it's a pattern, he, she, be, you know. But I do like to give them more information, the better. So anyway, so dictation. The way I teach dictation is I have 2 kinds of cards, and this is a Ron Yoshimoto thing. Project Read does call it red cards. They have the words written in red, but Ron has it actually on a red card, and then he has green cards. So I teach them what the difference between a green card and a red card. Can anybody figure out what the difference is? Yeah, which one's phonetic? Green. So if you can sound it out and it follows the rules, it's a green card. So this is a visual clue that they can, this should be, I can figure this one out. I don't have to like expel too much more mental energy. I can sound this one out. But this one, there's a trick. It's unfair. So I teach my kindergartners if it's a red card, it's an unfair word. There's something unfair about this word. But then we'll analyze it together. So your examples have, so we'll do have. Now, they know the rule now, so this one could be green because now they know that there's a rule. But before they know the rule, it's red. So I'll say, all right, so anybody know this word? Somebody usually knows it, right? Have, right, have. I have black shoes on. This is the word have. How many letters are in the word have? So I just have them look at it. 4 letters. What's the first letter in have? H. What's the next letter? And then, and the ending letter? E. And if they know the rule, you can talk about the rule. Right, so there's 4 letters in the word have. Why do you think this is a red card? Why is this unfair? And then I let them talk to themselves, talk to each other, and try to figure out why it's a red card. And then I get their information, right? Oh, well, have, you don't hear the E. The E is silent, but there's an E there, right? So that's the trick. There's an E on the end of have. You don't hear an E. That's unfair. You just have to remember there's an E. If you remember the rule, then that will help you. No English word ends in V, always followed by an E. But they may or may not know the rule yet, depending on when you teach it. So then, and from here, after we've analyzed it, we know why it's a red card. We know how many letters are in there. We've talked about that there's an H, A, V, E. Then we'll skywrite it. Okay, so let's get our skywriters up. You can do rocket ship, or you can just do pointers. You know, touch the ceiling, poke, and again, you're gonna have to do it backwards, right? So we're gonna skywrite it together. Ready? Let's spell have. How do you spell have? H, A, V, E spells have. And we'll do it a few times in the air. Say, oh, let's do it on the carpet. How do you spell have? H, and we'll do it on the carpet. Ooh, now let's challenge ourselves. Can you do it without looking? How do you spell have? Let's Spell it to her elbow. H-A-V-E spells have. Excellent. Let's spell it to your shirt. How do you spell have? H-A-V-E. And so you just have them spell it a ton of times. But you give them this. You give them it to look at before you take it away, right? And if it looks like they still need it, bring it back out, right? H-A-V. And then I might have who wants to be brave, who wants to try spelling it without the card. So I give them the challenge, you know. So anything you do to get them excited about the word have, and then I send them back to their desk to practice the word have. And I'll say, all right, as you're writing it, I want to hear you. You're going to use a red pen because it's a red card. And why is it red? It's unfair. There's something not fair about it. So you're going to use a red pen, red crayon, red color pencil. I don't care. It's got to be red because they need to remember it is a red card. And then they're going to write it. And as you write it, I want to hear you say the letter names as you write it. And then I do my example with them first. And then I set them off. And then they should be writing it in red as they say it. So go ahead and practice writing the word have. Say the letters as you write it, please. H-A-V-E spells have. And make sure they read it when they're done. H-A-V-E spells have. So you can even have them draw a line underneath it so you know they've read it. H-A-V-E spells have. Because it doesn't do them any good to just do H-A-V-E, 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 H-A-V-E. Those are just letters. You need to make sure they're going back and rereading it when they're done. H-A-V-E spells have, and they're reading it. So I have them do that, and then the next day I'll give it to them a few days in a row. The back page is I put this in here just so that you would have the website for it, but it's a free handwriting place that you can put in words, sentences, and it's free, and it puts it on the dotted lines. I love it. So it puts 1 million words on there. So I'll still give this to my kindergartners. They just may or may not write all the haves before I say it's time. The ones that are really fast will. But down at the bottom, it says handwriting worksheets. It's a great free website that you can do letters, words, sentences, paragraphs. I think it does the, it's not cursive, but yeah, I think it's Danelian. But then again, I've never tried to do cursive on it. So check it out, maybe. But I love it because it's free and it's easy, and I can do partial sentences with it and have them fill in the missing high frequency word. So that's why I put it in there, so you would have that website. Anyway, so that's how I do a high frequency word. And then I put these up so that when we're during writing time, if they need a word, they can come and pull it and take it back to their desk and then bring it back if they need it. And then I will have practice when we go off the carpet to do work. There's practice things I will do with high frequency words like bingo, tic-tac-toe, stuff like that. And that's another great thing for parents. So I have a tic-tac-toe board. They have to pick 2 high frequency words. One person is they, one person is have. And so instead of X and O, they're using their high frequency words. But I like to do it with a parent, especially if it's a struggling group, because you want to make sure they're practicing it right. You don't want them practicing it wrong. So it depends on your group. You got to kind of just do what works for your group. I mean, my Tier 1 kids are usually fine. I mean, they have the word in front of them. They're going to practice it right. But my Tier 3s may or may not. So that's how I do high frequency words. Okay, and then dictation. Okay, so I already kind of talked to you about the dictation pages that I use. But when I do sentences or phrases, I add an element to it to help them get it into their memory, because memory is compromised a lot of times, especially in kindergarten you kind of got to build that memory muscle. So what I'll do is I'll give them a, and then I can use this also in writing during writer's workshop. So I'll give them a sentence and they have to repeat the sentence, okay? So we only have 5 minutes, so pretend I have words up here, right? I have sounds and I have high frequency words. That's already here. I'm going to give you a sentence. You're going to repeat the sentence after me. We'll do an easy one. I have a black cat. What's my sentence?
I have a black cat.
All right, good. Let's clap it. 1 clap per word. I have a black cat. Awesome. Let's pound it. I have a black cat. Let's stomp it. I have a black cat. What's my sentence?
I have a black cat.
How many words is that? 5 words. Write that sentence. So at this point, they should remember it. You've clapped it, you've stomped it, you've pounded it out, you've counted how many words. So at this point, they should be able to write that whole sentence without you repeating it anymore. So go ahead and write your sentence. Pencils up when you're done. So the first question I ask is, did you start your sentence with a capital letter? All sentences have to start with a capital letter. If you didn't, just fix it. No big deal. If you didn't, go ahead and fix it, and then you'll have some fix it. All right, good job. Second question, did you end with punctuation? What? And then you can ask them, what kind of punctuation is this? What should we end this with? Is it a statement? Is it a question? Is it an exclamation point? So you can have a conversation about punctuation at that point. If you forgot, just add it. What should we add there? Anybody have an idea what should we add? Should we add a question mark? A period. Love that. Stop sign. So put your period there. Great. And then I might ask, especially if it's small group, because I can see if people have made a mistake. Does anybody have a word they're kind of wondering about and think, kind of stuck on that you want some help with? So that they can ask for that help, right? Sometimes they won't know it. I'll say, all right, let's check our writing. Okay, what's the first word? I. Is it capital? Yeah, I is always capital. It's super important. You're important. I is always capital. What about have? How do we spell have? And so you can kind of walk through that process. So this is our new snap word, our high frequency word. What's the rule? So you can kind of work through it. And then when you get to something that they're stuck on or something that's wrong, then you don't want to tell them it's wrong. You want to guide them to that answer. So let's say someone put black, B-L-A-C. Well, let's check the word black. What's the first? Let's finger spell black. B-O-A-K. Black. There's 4 sounds in black. What's the first sound? B. All right, what's that letter? B. Do you have a B? Excellent, good job. If not, let's fix it, right? What's the next sound? B. Oh, what's that letter? Oh, L. Check. Did you have an L? Good job. What's the next one? A. What's that letter? A. Apple. Oh yeah, A, right. Last one, K. K. Oh, K. How do we write K? What are the different ways we can write K? C-K or C-K? Oh, wow. C-K or C-K. Does anybody remember the rule? What can help us? When do we use C-K or C-K? And so you can kind of lead them to it. Oh yeah, C-K, that's the end of a short word after a short vowel. Is that A a short vowel? Bull, a. Yeah, it's a short vowel, right. Is it a short word? Black, 1 syllable, short word. It's a short word. At the end of a short word, after a short vowel, is spelled with CK, good job. If you didn't get CK, just put a CK, fix it, right? So you can guide them through that thought process of proofreading it, because it could be any of those three until they really think through the rules, and then they find that rule and they can fix it. And then at the end, I let them give themselves a big smiley face, whatever. So that's how I do dictation with them. And again, you can only dictate stuff they know.